I have never seen such a tough girl, beating two boys like this with her bare hands. The boy's parents came to argue, and the father apologized and sent the neighbor away. Seeing that his father was not angry, the girl recovered in a vivid manner. The whole incident happened, but it made the father who was watching on the side very excited. At this time, the two girls were completely unaware that this incident would change their lives. The man was once the national champion of Indian wrestling, but because of life forced to retire early, her biggest regret is that she failed to win a gold medal for her country and can only pin her hopes on her unborn son. But she never expected that the wife would give birth to 4 daughters one after another. Seeing her husband so lost, the wife seemed very remorseful, but the husband said, "I love my daughters very much, but only a boy can realize what I want." She put all her life's honors into the box and planned to give up her dream, but on this day the outstanding performance of his 2 daughters rekindled the man's hope. It turned out that his daughter had also inherited his wrestling gimmick. At this moment, she made an important decision and planned to let her 2 daughters learn wrestling from her. His wife learned about this, but she expressed strong opposition because she had never heard of any girl learning wrestling, but her husband had already made up his mind. At 5 o'clock in the morning the next day, their father took them to eat their favorite fried pancakes and told his 2 daughters to eat them openly, because from today on, they would say goodbye to this kind of food completely. From then on, at 5 o'clock in the morning every day, the father would take his daughters to train for physical fitness. They would run in the fields, wearing boys' clothes, and use machines to improve their muscle strength. She wanted to take her daughters to the training ground to practice their skills, but she encountered strong opposition. She had no choice but to go to the fields. He built one by himself, and then hired his nephew to train with his daughter. Day after day of training made the 2 daughters miserable. They found their father and said that the soil at the training ground was too dirty. Lions grew out of their hair. The father didn't say anything and asked someone to cut them off. You must know that in India at the time, this practice was unacceptable to many people. Once they appeared on the street, they quickly became the laughingstock of everyone. Not only that, the neighbors also began to point fingers at the men. He thought she was simply crazy, but in the face of these rumors, the man remained unmoved, but the daughters could no longer bear it. The neighbors looked at her strangely, and they decided to rebel against their father. While their father was sleeping, the 2 of them set the alarm clock. They pretended to train until his father got up. They also sprinkled water on light bulbs to train them when the father was not paying attention, although the father knew that these were all done by his daughters. But there is nothing we can do against them. Till this day, the daughters went to a friend's wedding. After the wedding, they told their friends about their painful experiences and how harsh their father was to them. But their friends said, "At least your father is thinking about you, and my father would only worry about who to sell me to. Even if it was a man he had never met, he would still have to wash and cook for her to give birth to children, and your father, in order to let you have your own future and life, would not hesitate to go to against all voices. Shouldn't this be a blessing?" After hearing this, the 2 daughters were completely awakened. They finally understood their father's good intentions. Early the next morning, the father woke up and wanted to wake up his daughters, but found that the daughters had already left. From that day on, the 2 daughters, my daughter no longer complained or was lazy, and even tried her best to squeeze herself. She even practiced her grip strength during class. It didn't take long for the 2 of them to improve their abilities by leaps and bounds, and even their cousin, who was a sparring partner, became a defeated opponent. Seeing this scene, the father realized that it was time for them to participate in the competition. She brought her daughter to the town. The organizer heard that girls were going to participate in the competition and thought it was a great opportunity to make money. After much publicity, the game that was once no one cared about suddenly became empty, but most people just came to watch the fun. No one would believe that a girl could win the game. Even the referee said to her, "Who do you choose to win?" But she neither the shortest nor the skinniest was chosen, but the strongest among the 4 was chosen. At the beginning of the game, Geeta's offensive was very fierce. The boy quickly fell behind because he underestimated the opponent. Geeta used her skills to instantly throw the boy to the ground. The boy who stood up again was very energetic. She did not dare to fight again. He underestimated the girl in front of him, but despite this, the boy was still knocked down by Geeta, but because of insufficient strength, Geeta could not move the boy. Slowly, Geeta's physical fitness was gradually at a disadvantage, and the boy found the opportunity to stand in front of Geeta. Geeta's left foot landed on her back. She lost the game, but won the recognition of all the audience. She walked to her father in despair and said sorry, but his father patted her on the shoulder and said it was okay. After returning home, Geeta couldn't sleep all night. This was the first time she was so eager to win. She got up and went to her father and said, "Let's play again next time." After the game, Geeta performed more and more bravely. She kept challenging another boy one game after another. The boy who once defeated her was now defeated. Even her sister Babita was undefeated. The trophies of the two sisters were soon filled. The whole room filled the room, and the former doubts were replaced by applause. But these are not enough for the father. If he wants his daughters to go further, he must first win the national championship. In order to prepare for the next competition, her father quit his job. Because she had no money to buy a professional wrestling mat, she carried all the quilts up to the rooftop and made a homemade wrestling mat. Here, she told her daughters about the points system. According to the rules of the competition, after a long period of training, both sisters made rapid progress. In the next national competition, Geeta overcame obstacles all the way. Even when facing opponents stronger than herself, she never lost. This girl broke out from the crowd of men. The strong man undoubtedly won the championship. A few years passed in a blink of an eye. Geeta moved from the youth group to the adult group. There was no suspense. She won the national championship again, but this time, she had to leave her hometown. Going to the National Sports Academy, my father was worried, so he accompanied Geeta. Unexpectedly, on the first day here, the coach asked everyone to forget the previous round training, and then follow his own arrangements and reshape themselves. Hearing with this sentence, his father found the coach and said that Geeta had been trained by him before. He hoped that the coach could give correct guidance, and Geeta would definitely win the gold medal for India. However, this sentence completely angered the coach. In order not to cause trouble for his daughter, the father can only choose to leave quietly. Unlike her father's devilish training, the training at the National Academy was very lax. Geeta, who could not resist the temptation, soon followed the trend. She started watching movies, eating junk food, and growing her long hair. She will become more and more beautiful. The more time she spent on things that had nothing to do with training, when Geeta came home again, she proudly talked about the academy. Although her father saw the change in Geeta, he didn't say anything. Hyanjita saw her sister still using the old tricks taught by her father, so she told her sister that this was outdated. She taught her sister the new methods of coaching, but her father saw them without comment. His father asked Geeta to show them to him. The next second, she was thrown heavily to the ground by her father. At this moment, Geeta was angry. She attacked her father crazily, trying to prove her strength. At this time, her physical strength was at its peak, but her father was already declining. He was old, and due to lack of physical strength, his father finally lost to Geeta. Geeta's arrogance made her sister unable to stand it anymore. She told Geeta that it was precisely because of her father's teachings that the two of them were where they are today, and besides, it was not Dad lost, but Dad got old. Geeta, who returned to the academy again, represented the national team in the championship, but relying on the skills taught by the coach, Geeta didn't even win the first round, and it can even be said that she was crushed all the way, and the sister on the other side, relying on her father's methods, easily won the national championship, and finally she also came to the National Sports Academy. But look, Geeta's calm red face, my sister was very puzzled, remembering that Geeta lost the game for the first time and couldn't sleep all night. But now even if she lost the international competition, she couldn't see the slightest frustration. Geeta asked her sister to take care of herself, and said that she would only lose this once. But when it came to the next Jakarta Championships and Istanbul Championships, Geeta was completely defeated in the first round, as if she could not escape such a curse. And the instructor told Geeta that this is not your fault, some people are born speechless with the champions. And this sentence made Geeta understand it thoroughly. The gap between the coach and the father. At the encouragement of the sister, Geeta finally called her father. The woman looked at herself in the mirror and cut off her long hair ruthlessly. The reason why she did this was only to find her former self. She came to the training hall. The two sisters looked at each other and laughed, but the instructor suddenly arranged for her, gave up the 55 kilograms class, went to the 51 kilograms class to compete for the medal, learned the news. The father was furious. She was ready to go to the academy, personally instructed her daughter, and learned that the daughters were training at 7 o'clock every day. The father told them that he came to see him at 5 a.m., how familiar it was at 5 a.m., and from that day on, the two sisters were still before dawn, so they found their father to start the emergency training. They seemed to be back to the original starting point. And the father also gave the two more tactics. In order to ensure that Geeta could stay in the 55 kilogram class, the father would give her a meal alone every day. But the good times didn't last long. They were still discovered by the coach. The school did not allow the father to secretly train his daughters again, otherwise they would be expelled from school. For the sake of the daughter's future, the father had to agree, but the next sports meeting was coming soon. In order to let her daughter win the championship, she began to look over and over again the past competition records. She pointed out her daughter's shortcomings while looking for loopholes in the opponent. It didn't take long for the Great Britain Shoe Games to go ahead as scheduled. Facing the first opponent, her father let Geeta keep the offense and play to her advantage, but the coach let her defend. But Geeta listened to her father's guidance and won the game with a shocking surprise. But the next final match will be a tough battle. The opponent has won 2 world championships. The coach turned out to be too difficult for Geeta to say. Let her continue to attack, try to get as many points as possible, and the father, after watching the opponent's record, told Geeta to use defensive techniques this time, because once the other party can't get the score, then the momentum will be convinced, and at that time, look for a break to defeat the opponent, and soon the game will begin. Geeta will be strictly defended according to his father's instructions, and his father's words should really be tested, because the opponent can't attack for a long time. He actually went to buckle Geeta's wrist, and there had been signs of a violation, but Geeta was not provoked, but has been looking for the opponent's break, and the two finally stalemate and draw, and can only have a forced grappling game, and the two sides decide to attack or defend in the way of throwing hard coins. Unfortunately, Geeta drew the defender. In the case of being held by the opponent with one leg, it is not easy to hold for 30 seconds. Geeta held her breath to adjust the rhythm, but she didn't expect the next second. She was lifted up by the opponent. At the critical moment, Geeta adjusted her center of gravity in the air, and quickly turned around to score a point after landing, although Geeta, who won the game, successfully rushed into the final. But it also angered the coach, because Geeta did not obey the guidance twice in a row, which made her very angry. So before the finals began, the coach arranged for someone to deceive her father into a room, then locked her there. Her father couldn't break through the door by all means, and there was no signal when he wanted to call, so she could only sit here and pray for her daughter. This time Geeta could only rely entirely on herself, but the opponent had defeated Geeta twice. This psychological pressure can be imagined. Unexpectedly, Geeta in the first round fully exerted her offensive advantages, won a game with a score difference of 5-1, and in the second round, the opponent's attack became more and more fierce. Geeta lost frequently, and led the lead by 2 points. The opponent pulled back a game by slowing down the rhythm of the game. At this time, Geeta often looked at her father's seat, how much she longed for her father to give her some guidance at this time, and in the final game of the third game, the opponent's attack was full of aggression. Geeta's rhythm was also completely disrupted. At this time there were only 22 seconds left in the game. The score was 1-5. At this time, Geeta wanted to win the game as easy as the sky. At this time, Geeta recalled the fate that her father gave her, and that difficult set of 5-point moves. She looked for an opportunity in the only time left. And lost this game. Geeta eventually won the world championship and created her own miracle. And when her father heard the Indian national anthem playing, she knew that her daughter had finally fulfilled her dream. At this moment, a staff member opened the room, and the father rushed into the game scene and saw his father appear. Geeta threw down the reporters and ran quickly to his father, looking at the gold medal on Geeta, and the father finally said the long-awaited phrase, Sapas, which is the prototype character of a real story movie.
Sapas.
Mahavir Singh Boka, a former wrestling champion in India, under her training. The two daughters won a total of 29 international wrestling medals. Her efforts have also inspired thousands of women across India to devote themselves to wrestling. She broke the traditional and secular notions in the midst of everyone's doubts. And the film was also scored 9.0 by 1.3 million people. Strongly recommended that everyone watch it in its entirety. Okay, that's all for today's story. I'm the 8th. If you have any stories you want to hear, remember to tell me. I'll tell you.